How many business owners do we have in the room? Just so I can get a context here. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I've been a business owner since I was 15 years of age. Like Cindy said, I've sold 6 businesses to date. I love business. I think that as business owners, we have an amazing opportunity. We can impact so many people. We can impact our team members, we can impact our vendors, we can impact our clients. The cool thing that we have as believers is we can impact them with Jesus, right? We can live this testimony out in front of them day in, day out. Now, are we perfect? No. Our team is here, and they would say by no means is Justin or any of us perfect, but we have the opportunity. And the very fact that God trusts us with His precious word is amazing to me. So, can your business fund your retirement? So there's some statistics we're going to go over this morning, but the thing that attracted me to business years ago is this. I was sitting at a table with a business owner, and they were broke. I don't want to ask anybody to raise your hand on that one, but many times business owners are broke. We spend our whole life pouring into our business, right? Blood, sweat, tears. We stay awake at night. I don't know about you, but I've had many a night where I have a pad on the table beside my bed where something wakes me up at 1 a.m. in the morning and I have to get it out of my head to even go back to sleep because the business is us. The reason why I wrote the book, Your Baby's Ugly, is my dad used to make that statement on a regular basis. He would say, son, you never tell a woman her baby's ugly, but if you do, sometimes you have to, you better run or duck because they're coming after you. But we business owners, we have this baby. We have this business that candidly becomes our identity. And if we're not careful, we reach this age, as many of our non-business owner peers will, at maybe age 60 to 70, and we desire to exit. We desire to retire. We desire to move into chapter 3.0, whatever your term you want to use, only to realize that this baby that we have invested our whole life in is not near the value that maybe our friends was. You know, as business owners, we like to compare ourselves to each other. We all do it. And we hear about a friend down the road who sold their business for 8 times X, or 4 times earnings, or 3 times EBOC, or whatever the term is in your particular industry. And so we compare ourselves to that, but then when we get to the selling table, we realize that our business, our baby, is not as pretty as it could be. So I want to kind of talk through that a little bit today. On how do we build our business for success. There's some surprising numbers. I'm not one to read slides on a regular basis, but one of the things that is interesting to me in this is that 75% of businesses will change ownership in the next 10 years. It's called the gray tsunami because of our age, because of our population, because of our demographics. Right? Many in my generation or beneath us have not yet jumped into the entrepreneurial spirit. So we have those just above me or just at my generation above who basically carry our business ownership. But as we look at the ownership move, we have this false perception. We have this idea that the person who's going to buy us sees our company the exact same way we do. We have this idea that they're romanticizing our business just like we are, right? I mean, how many nights have we stayed awake? How much blood literally have we spilled of our business? How many times have we found ourselves crying? I can remember through COVID watching, big strapping men weeping over not being able to pay their employees, their team. So we honestly think these people are going to buy our business, or a buyer is going to look at our business the same way we do. And it doesn't happen. It's not the reality. So that leaves us in this quandary, this position of who do we talk to? Now, I'm amazed to see this many business owners here because we can, as business owners, carry on a conversation that many people who are not business owners can carry. We can almost empathize with each other. We have this certain connectivity that we can share. But not everybody can do that. This microphone is going to be the death of me up here if I don't fix this. So who do we talk to? Who's listening to us? You know, as much as your team tries to understand what you're experiencing, you know this. They try, they don't. They don't. Your spouse, my wife is the best. Those of you who know her, I'm blessed. But she doesn't quite get it. Do I talk to my mom? She's trained me about everything in life that I know. She doesn't quite understand it. We as business owners have this idea that, hey, we're isolated on the island, so who do we lean to? There has to be somebody in our group that we can rally with. I have coaches that work with us. I have coaches that I've employed. So I'm a strong proponent of coaching. I'm a strong proponent. If you look at every professional athlete, they have a coach, and they're the best of the best, right? The top 0.01%, and they have coaches. I think we business owners have to have coaches. When we look at the market, though, everybody has in different segments, different NAIC codes here in the room. You know, we have realtors, we have tax preparers, we have a number of us in here. They're all in different types of business. But the reality is only 3 to 4% of our businesses in this room will actually transact for what we think they're worth. So whatever you think your business is worth, look around the table, it's not. That's the reality. Only about 3 to 4% of us in here. What I dreamt for years was building a best-in-class business. A business where I could exit on my own terms with a value that was equal or greater than what I anticipated to be. And the principles that we're going to go through today work. My team is here, the team that has been with me through the sweat and tears. They can testify that the principles that we're talking about works. So let me go ahead and disband one myth that I know we're going to have. The myth is that I'm not big enough. My business is small. I don't have dozens of employees. I'm just by myself. I promise you there's a principle here that you can apply to your business that will change the trajectory of your business. There is something that can help everybody here today. When we look at the market today, I'm going to go with the middle market. I don't think there's many middle market businesses in here. The market's broken into 3 segments, if you will. The small business, which is where probably most of us fall in, is from 0 to roughly 10 million in EBITDA, earnings before depreciation, interest, taxes, and amortization. I doubt there's many middle markets inside here. Middle market businesses fall between $10 million to $100 million in EBITDA, and then large companies like Apple, Amazon are north of $100 million in EBITDA. So for the middle market, which is where we get our most recent statistics from, small business is even more dismal than what I'm going to show you here. In the middle market, we have roughly about 250,000 businesses in the U.S. that are going to try to transact in the next 8 years since the study was done. Only 50,000 will be deemed market ready. Only 30,000 will actually transact. Out of those 30,000, 16,000 will sell with concessions. What does that mean? That means that you're going to leave money on the table. In a nutshell, that's what that means. And only 14,000, 4% roughly, will sell for what they desired value is. Look at the statistics here, friends. Small business is worse than that. So those of us in here, we're looking at middle market numbers that say 3 to 4% of us will get what we think the business is worth. Only roughly about 12% will actually transact. In this room, I would say you probably have about 6% that will transact in the small business segment. So there's a gap. There's a huge gap that we've got to fill as business owners. If you were to take an honest assessment of where you're at in your current finances, I would dare say that most business owners in this room would say, we're not where we need to be. Financially, we're not where we need to be. And candidly, this is going to sound kind of crazy coming from somebody in the finance world, the stock market's not going to get us there. I don't care how much money you throw in the stock market, you're lucky to get, let's use Dave Ramsey's number, 12%. Okay, if that happens, it's not going to often bridge the gap that we have. So the business that we have is ultimately the horse that we have to ride to retirement. It is our solution. But, Joe, unless we deploy sound business principles that can provide scientific results, we're not going to reach that gap. We're not going to bridge the gap. There's a thing called a value gap. I can deal with several different types of gaps. I can deal with your wealth gap, your profitability gap, or today we're going to talk about the value gap. The value gap is what your business will sell for versus how much you need it to sell for. So here's a sobering statistic. If you need $50,000 a year in income, you need roughly $1 million. $1 million times 5% is $50,000. Simple math. The problem with us business owners is we live vicariously through our business. Whenever we sell our business, our cell phone is no longer paid for by the business, right? Neither is our car or the trip or the health insurance or whatever else we're paying for through the business. On a pre-tax basis, mind you, right? Because we're pretty savvy about that. So now when we sell our business, we have to not only make up the income that we're taking out of the business, we also have to calculate in what's called normalization, the amount of money that we're sheltering within the business from a tax standpoint. So when we start calculating all these numbers, we're going, holy cow, there's no way that we're ever going to retire with that income or that beach house or that Dodge Viper or whatever your dream is, right? You know, there's a way to do it though, friends. The danger is that our entrepreneurial spirit lies to us. The way that we often think we're going to bridge this gap is we're going to go out and generate more sales. We're going to go out and win that next big case. We're going to go out and buy another business so we can merge it in with ours, then we'll package it all together and sell it. Cindy said that I have a horticulture degree. I love gardening. I do. It's like there's no one out there and it's just me and the sun and the sweat and the stink and everything else. Love it. I learned years ago that in business as a horticulturalist that a garden hose can run about 12 gallons a minute through a garden hose. That's for just useless factoids you can win Jeopardy with. Okay? If you bend the garden hose just a slight bit, it reduces the flow rate. What we in business try to do is we try to straighten it out, right? But then we're going to try to bridge our gap, this wealth gap, this value gap that we have. So what do? We go out and get more sales. So we're trying to push more fluid through that hose. It's only going to pump about 8 gallons a minute through it, roughly. Now, I know some engineers in here could argue with me on that. I'm just using simple logic for the word picture. But nonetheless, the danger whenever we try to bridge our value gap with sales is we add what's called company-specific risk to our business. It actually devalues our business. It's the opposite effect. So whenever we say, hey, my business isn't worth what the broker said it's worth, now I need to go out and I need to generate more income, all you're doing is you're pressing more stress on the machine. And when you put stress on a machine, it doesn't like it. And it causes the business value to actually work opposite of what you desire. We always have to have a little bit of Dilbert. It's amazing the wisdom that Dilbert can produce, isn't it? I always have to have a little bit of that. So whenever we're trying to maximize value, we want to quantify. We want to quantify things. The issue becomes is oftentimes we want to chase the quantitative results, but the focus that we should have is on the qualitative. The qualitative. So let's tear that statement down a little bit, and this is where now rubber meets the road. There's a tale of two companies. This is pretty common. You see it every day. For those of you who are students of the stock market, you would easily recognize this. The bankers in the room would also recognize this. The tale of two companies is a public company carries a higher multiple or a higher book value or a higher stock price, whatever term you want to look at, than a private company. Why? Any ideas? Anybody ever heard of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act? How many of your businesses follow the Sarbanes-Oxley? Anybody in here? One out of roughly 80 business owners. The reason why public companies trade at a higher stock price is that's an example of it. They're required to follow more stringent rules than what we are. So let's just use basic accounting. If we were to follow Sarbanes-Oxley in our accounting books, many of our businesses would not survive. Just wouldn't. Because I've seen too many books, especially from some people in this room. I know the way the numbers look on the books. I've played the games myself. So when we look at the tale of two companies, there's a really interesting factoid, and that is that public companies are paramount at de-risking. They reduce risk. They reduce risk through redundancies. They reduce risk in the companies through systems, through processes, through people, through boards, through various structures. But yet we small business owners, we're our own worst enemies. We sit in the epicenter of our business trying to spin every plate, putting out fires all day long. And if you were honest with yourself, myself included, we all say, yes, that's me. And so as we're trying to drive the value of our business, we have to follow, if we're going to get maximum value and bridge our retirement gap, we need to follow the principles set forth by Wall Street, set forth by big companies. And we can. You can deploy these in your small business. You can deploy these if you're even a solopreneur. So what determines the sale value? Let's look at two companies. Both appear to be the same. And this is where the fallacy that we have comes into play, friends. We hear our friend down the street who's very similar to us, or across the country who's very similar to us, that has the same maybe business type that we do. They're producing roughly the same number. They're in roughly the same demographic market. But then we separate ourselves. So show of hands. Who would pay a premium dollar for company A? No one in their right mind would. We would pay a premium dollar if we were an investor for company B, obviously, right? So whenever we're building our companies, obviously we're there to service our clients. I get that. We're there to support our teams. But ultimately, it is the horse we're riding to retirement for us business owners. So because of that, here's the most important thing I learned in business. We build our business for the ultimate customer. Who is the ultimate customer? It's the person who's going to buy us. We shape our business for the buyer. And in doing so, we can de-risk our companies. So now you people say, hey, my business value is X. What type of value are they talking about? And these are just a few. These are just a few types of values that are tossed around. They say fair market value. Are they talking about fair value, fair market value, collateral value? What type of value? Every industry has a different marker on what our business is worth. Candidly, at the end of the day, the business is only worth what somebody's willing to pay us, right? Reality of the situation. So how do you, as a business owner, increase the value of your company to where that ultimate buyer is willing to actually stroke a check, right? How do you increase the company where you are best in class, to where you negotiate the terms of your exit? Guys, I got to tell you, sitting through the last 9 months of negotiating an exit, it was unbelievable this time around in my business, being able to sit down and say, no, here are my non-negotiables, and then watching the buyers bend to those. Unbelievable, because of the principles that we're going to talk about. Some of you who are in the business consulting world may recognize some of these particular metrics. This is about 100 years worth of business philosophy condensed down to one chart, okay? But basically, if you look at it, there's 8 segments of business that we believe in, and they're at the bottom. So sales, marketing, people operations, finance, legal, planning, and leadership. There's more books written on leadership than any other segment, and that's because it's so vital. What John Maxwell said, everything rises and falls on leadership, right? I believe if when you look at a business, there's a couple of different areas of business that we need to focus in on as entrepreneurs. One of the weakest areas of business, we see it consistently over and over in the small business community, is marketing. Number 2 being planning. 2 weakest areas, and we've seen hundreds if not thousands of businesses through our business advisory services. Whenever we do an assessment, we take over 256 metrics to give a value of a company, and we can judge what a company's value. This is an actual case study that Miss Amy and I, who's here with us, are working on right now. We started about 3 years ago, and this was the grading of this particular company. And the company came back and they said, hey, we want to have X number of dollars in revenue this year. After 3 years, through COVID, as a dental practice who was shut down for 12 weeks, they outperformed their mark by, I think it was $225,000 or more in net revenue because of the value metrics you're fixing to see. In order to de-risk the company, we have to decentralize ourselves. This company scored at 186. We need to get them down into that 50 to 100 range. Most companies in here, if I were to assess, no matter how big you are, how long you've been in business, I've yet to see a company get in the green on the first assessment because we don't think that way. We have to decentralize and de-risk our companies. So what happens is this particular company, after we went through the first assessment, we realized there was about $1.1 million of revenue or value left on the table. One of the key things, and I wish I could walk around this microphone, I can't. One of the key things we have to remember in business is there's a simple mathematical equation that we can use the revenue, whether it's EBOC, EBITDA, EBIT, whatever it is, net NOI, and we multiply it by a multiple for small businesses. So let's say it's $100,000 in revenue times 3, it's a $300,000 value. What we want to do is we want to increase the multiple. If we can increase the multiple, then we can gather that particular enterprise value. Why does that matter? It matters because most business owners are broke. It matters because if we don't sell our business, we're never going to hit our retirement goals. So we want to stretch every bit of dollar out of this business as possible. That's why an assessment, that's why these principles will drive value. So when we look at a value qualification, what we want to do is we want to show somebody that without any additional revenue, remember the pressure going through the water hose, without any more income, any more client, no more sales, we want to work on the qualitative value of the company so that we can increase the value without having to work any harder. We don't want the motor to turn any faster. We want to give more output, right? So we can do that through some basic principles. Here are the top challenges, non-COVID, that were transpiring in the small business world. I would say right now it's probably employees more than anything else. Who would agree with me on that one? Yeah. I think it's probably employees more than anything else because of where we're at in the economic cycle right now. So if we look inside a company, let's tear those 8 segments apart. And this is where I want you to look in your business. Do you have a strong planning department? Do you have a strong plan for your business? Is it written down? If I were to ask you, hey, show me your target market, could you identify specifically who that target market is? Do you know where they sleep? Do you know where they eat? Do you know what they like? Are they like me? They go to Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, right? Do they like riding on a Kubota tractor, never a John Deere Kubota, right? Do they drive a Ford, not a Chevy, a Ford truck? You know, are they country? That's me. And I'm targeted by all those companies because of that, right? Because they know who I am. Do you have a written business plan? There's all sorts of articles that we've written about over the years. I've written articles for Kiplinger, for Wall Street Journal on business planning. There's basically, you can go to the MBA programs, but there's 9 to 13 segments of a business plan that makes it viable for us. So my first question is do you know where you're going? Do you know how you're going to get there? Have you quantified it? If you haven't, that's like going on vacation and not having a clue where you're going. It's like, I'm going on vacation next week. Where are you going? I don't know. I mean, who would do that? Right? Somebody would, but not me. I have to know exactly where I'm going, where I'm staying. I mean, I'm kind of a planner, right? That's by nature. So when we dive into planner, we want to look at these 5 areas of planning. Leadership. Oh my goodness, friends. Man, I'm dealing with a company right now that the CEO is silent and is causing downline ripples from the top down. On the opposite side, we're dealing with companies that the CEO won't shut up. They won't get out of their own way. Typical small business. We've all seen it, right? One of the things that I challenge business owners to do is set up a board of advisors. Set up somebody who can look at your blind spots. I hired a coach last year before COVID, before my wife went through some medical things, and he came in the company and he said, your business structures and systems are flawless. You have better processes and systems than companies 12, 15 times your size. Like, wow. He goes, but your vision is cloudy. Wow. Talk about hearing that for the first hand, especially if somebody writes books on it, right? Leadership is one of those things, friends, that is the pivotal of our business. The sooner that you can hand over the leadership of your business, the better. It holds the business owner, the epicenter of the business, longer than it needs to. The sooner you can give it to a manager, the sooner you can give it to an operations director, the better it is. And that's one of the principles that we teach to our business consulting department and actually show how to do that. Culture is an important one. Culture is kind of like a greenhouse to me. You know, for those of you who know, I use horticulture a lot because that's what I think. That's the way I think. A greenhouse has almost sterile, perfect soil in it. Perfect soil. No major nematodes, plenty of worms. I mean, it's just a really good soil base. Then you put a visqueen ventilation systems on top of it, and you can control the humidity. You can make it perfect. And in doing so, here in East Tennessee, we could actually have produce year-round. It's pretty amazing. That's culture within the business. It's perfect. It allows for growth. It allows for the prevention of toxins. It allows for control. Let me ask you this. If I were to ask to see your company's values, could you show me a printed document on what the values you run your company from? Let me take it a step further. You shake your head, yes. I want to go to your team. You're not in the room. And I'm going to ask them, hey, what are the values of this company? Would they be congruent throughout the entire organization? Let's take it a step further. We're believers. We represent the King of Kings. Do your values? Are they rooted in Scripture? Do we practice what we preach? As the preacher used to say, quiet time at church house. This is the reality, though. This is what a buyer's going to be looking for. I know. I just went through it. They're going to want to see the values written down. They're going to ask your team, hey, Jillian, what are the values of this company? And they're going to test. And if they pass the test, increase the multiple. It's amazing how it works. Sales is one thing that we small business owners often don't lack in. Now, we say we need more clientele. Reality is if we would need more clientele, we could go out and get it because that's who we are. We are tenacious animals. We know how to do business, right? There are times whenever it is lean. I get that. But we roll up our sleeves, we pull ourselves about the bootstraps, and Jeff Jetter, we make it happen, brother. We get after it. But are you attracting the right people? Are you going after the individual, the client, that's going to provide you the greatest return for your efforts? The one that's not going to disrupt the company, the one that's going to create scalability. Do you know who that is? Do you have a process? Here's the weakness number 2 for business owners individually. Number 1, we are our worst enemy when it comes to leadership. Number 2, we're often the best salespeople in the organization. We won't get out of our own way. We won't hand that off. Candidly, and you can ask the team, they're here. I remember whenever Jeff Jetter, who is a rock star, if you've never met the man, you need to know him. I remember when Jeff Jetter joined the company and I relinquished the sales process. Oh, painstaking. It wasn't because he was doing anything wrong. He's a rock star when it comes to just explaining what we do. But that was my baby. I was the guy who invented the company. I was the guy who outlined who we're going after. I was the guy who was out there on the face of the community. I was the one writing for all the national publications, but yet Jeff was the person answering the phone. Can you trust your top salespeople with your baby? Oftentimes business owners can't. And that ends up being the Achilles heel when it comes time to sell. Because think about it from the buyer's perspective. If you're the top salesperson for the business and now they're buying you out and they're going to give you 12 months to leave, theoretically, if there's, especially for the SBA loan, how are they going to replace you? You think they can ramp up marketing that fast? No. So we've got to start preparing ourselves for the ultimate buyer, the person who is going to buy our business, right? Again, I'm just trying to help everybody because there's a plethora of different businesses inside here. If we're dealing with marketing, this is one of the areas that I think is, well, I see it statistically, it's underserved, but it's one of the areas that I think if we grasp the power of it, our businesses would become amazing money generators. I don't care what business you're in, whether you're an attorney, a CPA, a realtor, a property management company, whoever's in here. I don't know who's in here. I don't care what business you're in a marketing business. I don't care the product, don't care the service, you're in marketing. That is your primary result. That's your primary task, is marketing. Do you know who specifically you're going after? How are you positioning yourself in the market, right? Do you have a budget? I love asking that question to business owners. They'll show me the P&L. I'm like, okay, wait a second. You're doing $2 million in revenue and you spent $5,000 on your marketing. The SBA said we should be spending 10 to 20% of our net NOI, depending on what business, or our gross margin on marketing. Amazon, look at their marketing budget. Apple, ridiculous. Everybody in the world has a dumb phone called Apple. I have an Android, by the way. It's a smartphone, for those of you who want to know. So everybody in the world knows Apple in the world, but yet they still spend billions of dollars in marketing. And we expect as small business owners that we're going to sell a business that we're only pouring minuscule amounts into a hodgepodge of marketing efforts that's not synergized or orchestrated to deliver results. Friends, it doesn't work. I love the people component because the team matters to me. I was with a company one time that the business owner was so self-centered that he stepped over the entire team. You've probably seen those individuals. And I swear, I said, Jesus, never let me be that way. Because I think as a business owner, we have the opportunity to shepherd those around us. I think that we have to be stewards not only of the resources and monetary, but God brings people in our lives so we can be stewards of them as well. And candidly, I think most business owners believe that. I sat with too many during the COVID time, just watching the angst on their face. And I know each of us probably dealt with that a little bit. So the people component is powerful. When I was a child, I'm going to show you my age, I remember the dream team, right? They were powerful. They dominated the world on the basketball court. Whenever you're building your team, do you have a dream team? Do you have the team that your competitors want to recruit away from you? And if not, start doing some trading. Start doing some team management. Sounds bad to say. Now's a great time to do it. It's a great time to go out and recruit rock stars to your business. Because if you're the buyer, want to buy your business, and what are we trying to do? We're trying to build our business so we can sell it, or build our business to maximize our net worth, because that's what a business is. It's a wealth creation tool. If we're going to do that, then we have to have a rock star team that the buyer wants to invest in. I am so grateful for the team God brought to our company. It is powerful. There's not a person in this room, I think there's 7 or 8 of us in here, there's not a person in this room who I would not trust immensely, and I have trusted immensely. Friends, I'm telling you, if you put a rock star team behind you, you're invincible. It's amazing. Now, does it mean you're not going to have any troubles? No, most of the time it's me that causes the problems. But it's amazing to see what happens when you have good people around you. So how is your team? Do you have a dream team? Hey, I'm a solopreneur. Great. First hire to be someone directly opposite you. Bring them in. Let them cause you some problems. Relinquish the things you hate. That's the way business is growing. Operations, there's a lot of things written about operations. We can get into all the different, there's 18, 19 methodologies for the last 100 years. I've got too many articles written on it. Ultimately, what you're trying to do through operations is create throughput. Okay, you're trying to create a system where there's no friction. Go back to my water hose. You're trying to get all the kinks out of the water hose so you can move your client, your prospect, through your structure as quick as possible with good quality control. So if you're an architectural firm, you want to shorten or reduce the friction, the time between the time they engage you to the time the process is done. If we're in mortgages, right, you want to shorten that as much as possible. That is operational throughput. That's as simple as it can get. But it's often the thing that drives us insane, especially someone with my personality. Operations, oh goodness, I am not a manager. That is not my world. But most business owners aren't. So hire you a rock star operations. If you're too small, get you a coach that can point out where you need to simplify that. If you're big enough to hire an operations manager, spend more money than you ever desired to and get someone who is well worth it. They will change your company. I know firsthand. I have the honor and privilege to serve by not only Jeff Jetter, but also Miss Amy Aarons. Whenever Amy came into my world, I told her, we were sitting at a restaurant over here with her husband, and I said, Amy, I need somebody to tell me no. I need you to give you permission today to tell me no. Make this company operationally efficient. Oh my goodness. And now to watch her coach business owners in this area, it's really kind of cool for me. It's like, I hate, we all have children that we watch grow up, and it's like that in the business world. It's like watching this happen. It's pretty amazing. Operations is one of those things that can make or break us. There's so many different things that we want to focus on, but one of the things I like to look at is, can you scale your company? Scaling is not only moving the numbers up. As we saw through COVID, scaling is also the ability to reduce speed really fast. We live here in East Tennessee, right? Most of us have been on a boat at some time. We want to obviously get up on plane really fast, but we also want to be able to pull that boat back really fast. That's scalability of a company. And that's where operational structures and systems come into play. When we deal with finance, most of us will outsource that. Very seldom do I see a business owner that's going to try to take on finances themselves. We hire qualified professionals like accounting professionals, CPAs, tax firms. My challenge on finance is I have this one requirement. Every business owner should have your financial statements by the 10th of the month. If your account's not given to you by the 10th of the month, find one that will. You cannot run a company looking 90 days backwards. You have to know where you're at financially within a few weeks, few days after the month end. Now, I know the CPAs in the room don't like that, excuse me, but that's my rule. And it works really well. And the companies who actually get financial statements within the first 10 days after month end, dynamically more successful. We get to legal, and this is the one area of business that drives me crazy. We're in a very litigious society today, right? I've been through several lawsuits, and none of them are fun. We buy insurances, right, to help us. We work with attorneys who are super intelligent to try to prevent it. But at the end of the day, we do the best we can. And if you've been in business any length of time, you've probably dealt with your matter of legal battles. So I live on a farm in Rockwood, and I just bought me a new chainsaw. I have like 4 now. I've had this thing with chainsaws. Because like even this morning, I had to have the chainsaw in the back of my truck to get out of the farm. I had to cut a tree up this morning in order to get off the road. So it's pretty crazy. A chainsaw is a beast of a machine. For those of you who've never run a chainsaw, they will kill you. There's no other way around it. So if you're going to run a chainsaw, here's the rule. You want it to be super powerful and razor sharp. You want it to be able to cut through the limb really fast so you don't kill yourself and it hops back and cuts your face off. An attorney's the same way. For business owners, we need an attorney or a series of attorneys who are the best in their field, who are razor sharp. The thing about a chainsaw is at the end of the day of running one, for those of you who've done this, you are exhausted. You really want to just curl up and find a bed somewhere and just, suck on your thumb, call for mama. I mean, it's that bad. The same should be true of the attorneys that you work with. They should wear you out. That's a good attorney. If you're working with one that is razor sharp, that wears you out, you've got the right counsel for your particular business. In our business, we had at one time 6 attorneys. Mr. Robbie was one of our attorneys that helped us with the books, the patents. If you've never worked with him for IP, brilliant. We had 6 attorneys at one time. And let me tell you, they worked their weight in gold through a legal battle, also through a transaction, the transition. So legal is one of those areas that is pretty powerful. So here was the before picture of this company, and here was the after picture. That was a value increase of $1.1 million without any additional revenue. Let me say that again. That was a net worth increase to the business owner of $1.1 million without any additional sales going through the company, just by focusing on the intangible assets of the company. Friends, we have to close the gap if we're business owners. As business owners, we have to focus on the one asset that provides us the greatest opportunity to meet the needs or the desires that we have as individuals. It's not the stock market. I'm sorry, it's not the insurance world. Candidly, for many of us, it's not the real estate world, and all those are viable investments. But for business owners, we're pulling 70, 80, 90 hours of our brain time into our business. Invest in the thing that is the most, that centers the most in our heart. The scripture says, wherever your treasure is, your heart is there also, right? The reality is that our heart's often wrapped up in our business because it is our number one asset. That's the asset that we need to grow for business owners. There is a term I heard years ago that says change the narrative. What are you going to do differently today in your business than you did yesterday? What action are you going to take in those 8 areas to change your narrative? I can testify firsthand that when you apply basic principles, simple principles, in an organized fashion, that God will align circumstances of your life to whenever value and opportunity align perfectly. He provides us wealth so that we can advance His kingdom. Whenever a couple years ago, and this I didn't have this, I wasn't going to say this, but a couple years ago, those are all the legalese, by the way, the lawyers make us say. So you're welcome to read those. I'm going to get back off those because they're annoying. A couple years ago, whenever the team was working to this end, one of the team members said, Justin, What's at your core? What value have you not shared with us? And I can remember sitting down with my pastor, Scott Cagle at North Star. I was sitting down with him over at, eating some grits and eggs, God's breakfast. And I said, Scott, I don't want to tell my team that. He said, why? I said, I think it sounds hokey. He said, it's what God put on your heart, right? I said, absolutely. He said, share it. So I can remember sitting around the table, and I was telling the team, I said, guys, God does something for our family that I want to repay back. My wife came to know Jesus because of a missionary. And because of missions, Emily and I have had this burning desire to do things with missions. We wanted to set a foundation up. We wanted to do some things with charities, with orphanages, things of that nature. And I can remember sitting down with the team, and they can verify this, and saying, we want to create a foundation, the Heritage Foundation. That's why we have this business. We want to impact 10,000 business owners, and as God rewards us financially, we want to create a foundation that we can help missionaries because of what Jesus did through missions with our family. If you had asked me at the age of 43 that would come to be, I would have told you full of it. But what transpired is that as I put myself out there as a business owner, unified the mission, unified the team, let God take control of that business. At 43 years of age, he met a desire that I didn't think would happen until I was in my 70s. My challenge to you is this. We're believers. Scripture says, thy words are a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I love those two statements. I love to hunt. I was turkey hunting this last week, and I was walking out in the woods, and I have a stream light that's a super bright focused light. And I can see laser focused, hundreds of yards if I need to, right? But I also have a lantern, which just lets me see right around me. As business owners, sometimes we want to shine way out into the future. We want to shine way out there. We want to see exactly where we're going to be in 5, 6, 7 years. But this faith light that we walk is not that simple. Sometimes it's just a lantern. We can only see the next step. We can only see one step around us. As we think through this thing of business, knowing that that money's not evil, that our business, he gave it to us to steward for him, man, I just challenge you to say, what's this next faith step that you need to do as you're stewarding your business, as you're investing back into this very asset that God's entrusted for you? He wants you to be successful. He's prepared you for what he's prepared you for. I believe that with all my heart. So I hope that helps you today.